Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Ergo Prism channel. Today, I have a very special guest, as usual. They're all special. I have Funiculum, who is a prominent NFT artist and creator here on the Ergo platform. His project is called ERGnomes. And yeah, welcome. Thank you so much for taking time to sit down with us.
Thanks a lot for inviting me. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, for sure. So, first of all, what is your background professionally as an artist, and what is it exactly that you like to do and specialize in?
Well, my unprofessional background starts when I was a kid, when I was very little, I just loved drawing my own creatures, inspired by Pokemon mainly, Digimon, all sorts of weird creatures that evolved and then became bigger and cooler. And then, yeah, I just kept doing it until now. I tried to pursue an artistic career, both when I was in high school and then when I was at uni. But then my parents were like, maybe you might want to study something that's more useful than that. So I just kept doing it as a hobby, and now I'm here. It's become a job finally.
Great. And where do you live now? You're in Europe, right?
Yeah, I'm originally from Italy, but I've been living in England for quite a while now.
So, do you think you would be doing art for money if it weren't for NFTs? Were you already doing artwork for money before?
No, not at all, because my academic background is in business management, Japanese studies, and international marketing management. Those are like my undergrad and my master's. So I was doing something completely different. But I've always been drawing on the side. I used to draw like traditionally, and since I discovered NFTs, I realized that if I wanted to create something more scalable, then I had to embrace digital art. So
Why did you decide to mainly do unique one of ones? If it seems to me that would be a lot easier to do a generative collection where you have a lot of mixed match of traits and variables, and perhaps you would make quicker money that way, is what the space kind of feels like
mhm.
nowadays. Why did you decide to kind of do one of ones? And I know you have holiday themed ones, which are a little more generative, but in general, you tend to have unique one of ones that the community are willing to pay up for and they really like.
The reason is because since I love creating characters, then I feel like if I focus on each one of them individually rather than focus on the bigger picture and focus on like selling, thousands of them, then I can create like more, I don't know, more, I don't want to repeat unique, but like characters that are actually characters. Like there is only one of them. So, like there is only one Ergo prism. There is only one unique Ergo. So it gives it more, I don't know, it gives it a reason to exist as a character, not only as an NFT. But you mentioned, generative ones. For example, I tried doing that as well with gnome kits, and it was embarrassingly easy. It was the very first time I did anything with like anything that was more focused on quantity rather than
Hmm.
making each character unique. And it was embarrassingly easy and quick to do. So I ended up drawing all the assets for gnome kits in like less than a week.
Oh, wow.
And the money made thanks to gnome kits was much, much, much higher than any ERGnome series. So as you mentioned, yeah, generative art, I mean, not just generative art, but generative art focused on like quantity over quality. It is easy money, but it's also not as fulfilling to draw as an artist as unique one ones. And that's why I'm sticking mainly to one ones on Ergo. On the other hand, high quantity drops, like Nomkins, for example, they really help with allowing literally everyone to join the community at a very cheap price. Because if you have 10,000 NFTs, 3,000 NFTs, whatever, you can charge much, much less. And again, that lowers the barriers to entry and join the community of ERGnomes. So that's why NomKeys was born in the first place, because the price of ERGnomes was just becoming prohibitive and for the average Ergo investor. And when I decided to create ERGnomes, one of the things I wanted to do was to reach a good balance between creativity and scalability, meaning I want everyone to be able to afford one. So since ERGnome was shifting more towards a premium collectible series, then I needed something else that would let everyone else be able to join the community for a cheaper price.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. Where do you get the inspiration behind a lot of the unique characters? They are really out there, a few of them, right? And it goes beyond the scope of what the average person can probably conceptualize. And you have hundreds, if not thousands already. How many do you have in total? And where does the creativity and inspiration come from to keep doing another and another and another?
Well, the inspiration comes from either holidays. So those are pretty easy. For example, for St. Valentine's, go with Cupid.
Right.
For St. Patrick's Day, go with a leprechaun. I don't even know.
Leprechaun.
Yeah, there you go. That sort of note. So those are pretty straightforward. Whereas all the other ones, they need to be coherent with Ergo. What's happening on Ergo? What happened? Who's behind it? The people, the projects behind it. So it needs to tell the story of Ergo and the way it's been growing so quickly over the past year and a half, which is when I first joined. And answering your question about the quantity, the number of unique characters, and when I say unique characters, I mean each one of them has a different outfit, a different name, description, and all that.
Yeah, completely from the ground up built. Yeah.
Yeah, it should be over 200 by now. So obviously that's without considering all the iterations with all the assets, but like literally the character itself.
Wow. And how long do you feel they generally take for you to create?
It changed over time. Like Series 1 was very quick to draw, but Series 3, for example, it took me at least 1 day for each node and its assets. But I mean, from the concept phase to the final phase, and that's because, for example, in the third series, I needed to come up with, first of all, a character that will represent an Ergo project or someone behind that project. So there was like the conceptual phase took quite a while. And then when it came to drawing the character itself, I wanted the art to be better than the previous series. So I had to focus on lighting, shading, much more detailed level than I did with the previous series. So as Ergonome series comes out, I mean, as we proceed towards next series and next series, then it just becomes the art becomes increasingly elaborated.
A few people would probably be curious to know, what tools do you actually use in the process? Or even people that aren't artists like me, what tools do you use in order to give you the best outcome? Is it all digitally? Do you do concept art on paper and then transition that to digital space? And at the end of that, how has the minting process been to transition from creating the digital artwork and turning it into a non-fungible token?
Okay, I'll show you what I use. And it's this tiny Wacom tablet. So I just have to connect it to my laptop. And then as I draw on this, then the drawing pops up on my laptop screen. Anyway, and then I use a software called Paint Tool Site, which is It's not as complicated as Photoshop, but I don't really need all the features that Photoshop has, so it's perfect for what I do. And what else did you ask? Sorry.
The minting process,
Oh
turning it
yes.
from digital to actual, property.
Well, that's funny because when I first started drawing ERGnomes, I was drawing them like by hand on paper. And then I realized that I can't just scan them and mint them. It wasn't feasible. So as I started doing it digitally, then I came across lots of developers such as Hedzi, Wes, Ed Norris, and they helped me with the minting process. So what we did was Hedzi specifically, he focused on creating the very first minting machine on Ergo, and the first vending machine on Ergo. So the process of um, giving life to these nodes, to these JPEGs, and um, minting them. It was really fun, and if it happened all thanks to the team, to the original ERGnomes team.
How long? Well, prior to my next question, so you literally use your brain and that stylus, right, and that tablet, and you use a bit of colors in the program that you use to edit them, but that is it.
Yeah, there are
These
no
are
drugs
the
involved.
no, that is the extent of everything you need in order to create these. Because and the reason I say that is because for those people out there that haven't seen your work, they're incredibly detailed, like really detailed, very colorful, and um, from the outside looking in, it looks very challenging to create the characters and have them so animated as well, because they're not just static, they're not moving, they're oftentimes in motion. There's a lot of tiny details there that, like you said, are typically relevant to the project. Not everything is very intentional. And then even the wardrobe, I would say, and the facial features, they're really out there, right? So I hope that sheds a bit of light, like on what an actual artist truly at the base level needs in order to create all of that, because it seems like a very, just looking at them, it looks like a very unique journey process to create. So it surprises me that it is very much like your mind and drawing, doing a little touch up in the program that you use, and then minting them.
Well, there is also enthusiasm. That's a big
Yeah,
factor.
right.
Like you should always be kind of like challenging yourself when you're drawing something new, and you need to be enthusiastic about it. So, for example, you mentioned, the clothes, the poses. When you draw something, you want to ask yourself, have I already done this? Can I do it in a different way? Has anyone else done it in a similar way to mine? If yes, then how can I make it stand out? So again, all of these questions, you ask them to yourself because you enjoy drawing. So money in this case is just a byproduct of your enthusiasm and what it allows you to produce. And that's why ones are much, much more fun to draw than generative, like ones that focus on like the generative aspect of them.
Right. You mentioned the vending machine. How early on were you introduced to Ergo as a platform, and in terms of year and development in the auction house and things like that? A lot of people are familiar with the auction house V2 now, but I'm sure that wasn't always the case, right? And that is the easiest and simplest way to mint an NFT with, again, no gas on Ergo, which is great. And how early were you exposed to Ergo as a platform? And when did you decide, hey, I should take my artwork and do it here versus any other chain that's out there that you could also use?
Okay, so I discovered Ergo in late March 2021. And so I discovered it by pure chance because I was hanging out in a Cardano Discord because I've been holding Cardano for quite a while now. And this guy mentioned that he was only holding ADA, BTC, and another coin he didn't want to tell us about. Then we just pushed him, and then he mentioned Ergo. So I checked it out, and I was really impressed by Kushti's background, first of all. And then I bumped into Sigmaverse, Sigmaverse.io. And even though back then there were only a handful of dApps, it was impressive to see something like that on Ergo, but not on Cardano, for example, because at the time Cardano didn't have any smart contracts. And the market cap of Ergo was so low that it really made you wonder, why does this coin already have this handful of dApps, a solid team, and is still unknown? So investment-wise, that's what attracted me to Ergo. Then I noticed the auction house, and it was that easy to use. And minting was super easy as well. Whereas on Cardano, at that time, if you wanted to mint something, you needed to have some sort of coding background. So Ergo was literally monkey-proof and super cheap, as you mentioned. So I gave it a go, and I minted a couple of drawings I had done by hand years before. And I saw that people were bidding on that. So I thought, okay, not only is this easy to use and very artist friendly rather than, developer friendly when it comes to, selling NFTs, but there is also demand for NFTs. So, it was like the perfect mix to attract any artist really. So, and that's how ERGnomes was born. I wanted to create something that was very much Ergo related. And because there was nothing like that back then. There wasn't any like collectible series with characters and a theme. There was nothing like Spacebots, for example. And that's how ERGnomes was born. And yeah, it's been a fun journey so far.
Yeah, that is very interesting. Going back into NFTs, we're, in my opinion, so early in the process that I think the use case for NFTs as digital art came to prominence mainly because of the generative collections like CryptoPunks and Bored Ape Yacht Club, and a lot of press on, hey, these things are appreciating at an astronomically high value. But I want to remind people that NFTs can be used for other things as well, real estate, a lot of different things. And Daniel Friedman's working on a new project that is commercializing using Ergo and their NFTs as a service. But pretty much NFTs are a unique serial number that you can use for pretty much anything. You can use it for real estate. You can use it for supply chains. I think that's what VeChain does, if I'm not mistaken. But going back to the generative collections, since you have an understanding of, as you mentioned, how simple it is, ridiculously easy to make a generative collection usually, and you know what it takes to make a one-of-one uniquely in the whole entire process on both ends, do you personally consider a lot of those OpenSea collections true art, or do you consider them more of a money grab for the short term?
I feel like true art is too subjective of a word. So, if you go on crypto Twitter, you'll see lots of people that praise the art of lots of very subpar projects. So that I feel like that all comes down to the person's understanding of what art is. So probably those people, they didn't get exposed to like more elaborated pieces of work, so they consider that kind of stuff art. But for example, for me, who I can see the kind of effort that the author actually put into the drawing. So I can see if he actually, if they found ways to kind of like, I don't know, be lazy and avoid, actually putting effort into it. So for example, if they use like a lazy kind of shading instead of choosing the perfect shade depending on the color that the shade is on. And the same goes for lighting or the poses, the bases. All these, like if people started taking into consideration all these little things, then they could actually spot money grabs in a much, much easier way. So I feel like in the long term, as more and more NFT series come out, then people will become more and more educated about all of this. And even those who are completely oblivious about what art is and isn't, or whether if they used to have very low standards, then obviously their standards are they're gonna inevitably go higher as they get exposed to more and more NFT projects.
Do you feel well, first of all, what are your thoughts on DeFi at this point? My thoughts on DeFi are kind of what you feel about NFTs, that over time people will, I'm optimistic, I have no proof of that so far, but optimistic that people over time will see the real utility and raise the bar on themselves of, we expect a certain level of quality before investing into a certain cryptocurrency, blockchain, or NFT collection as well. What are your thoughts on the current state of DeFi? Or do you feel, it has to take a natural course, just like the NFT standards in terms of quality of art or labor put into art rather?
I've been into crypto only for about 2 years, so I feel like I'm still quite ignorant when it comes to things like DeFi. However, what I noticed as an ignorant user of DeFi is that people are attracted to novelty. So when they can, for example, when NFTs came out, everyone was ready to throw their ADA at NFTs because it looked cool to have this little image in your wallet. The same goes for DeFi. Oh my God, I can earn 90% passively by locking my coins in this liquidity pool. Okay, let's do it. Let's see what it feels like, because it's new and no one, and people get bored. When you hold, you want to do something with your coins. And another thing is, if you're participating to like a liquidity pool, or if you're using DeFi, then I feel like it makes you feel closer to the project itself and and as an extension to the community as well. And at the end of the day, crypto as a whole, especially for those who are not educated enough to understand the technological marvel behind the projects they've invested in, crypto is 100% about community. So if projects manage to find ways to get people more engaged, not only with their protocols, but with each other as well, then they're going to thrive in the long term. So right now, DeFi is the kind of new toy that everyone wants to play with, both because they don't know what to do with their coins otherwise, to feel closer to the protocol itself, and to feel closer to the community as well. So it's like when you're rooting for a football team and you're buying merchandise, for example, and you just want to make the most of it. So it's all about sense of belonging for those who don't understand the technicalities of the crypto they're investing in, I think.
Yeah, no, well put. I had a thought in the middle of when we were talking about the NFT minting process. So what other things would you like to see on Ergo have kind of the barrier to entry come down, right? The minting process, you didn't have to be a programmer. Somebody did the hard work of simplifying that process. So anybody with a rudimentary understanding of, having a wallet address, having Ergo there to facilitate the transaction, scanning a QR code, pretty simple things. It could be even simpler than that, but that is a very low bar to entry. What other things do you feel like would be important, not only on Ergo actually, but in general, in order to kind of scale the usage and the implementation of cryptocurrencies in everyday life?
Well, on Ergo specifically, streamlining the minting process on a wider scale is going to be extremely useful. And that's what Sky Harbor is working on. So that's obviously going to allow everyone who doesn't know any developer, who doesn't want to rely on a developer, to mint and sell a big collection rather than rely on the minting process on the auction house. That's quite cumbersome, even though it's easy to do. Like if you want to mint a lot of NFTs, then it becomes quite annoying to use.
Yeah.
And when crypto as a whole, um, I feel like it all comes down to educating people about, what the tools do themselves. Because, for example, if you introduce someone to DEX's liquidity pools, they may feel very overwhelmed, especially when it comes to concepts like liquid what's it called? Impermanent loss. So they can get scared very easily. So to attract that kind of people, then we just need to focus on education, and the platforms themselves, like the interface of the DEX needs to be
Sure.
friendly enough that it kind of like it doesn't look too overwhelming. For example, there is a DEX on Cosmos called Osmosis, and they use a lot of really really nice art, really funny art. They kind of they kind of make people visualize liquidity pools as a scientist that's putting different potions that is mixing like different potions. So that's kind of like I don't want to say childish, but a very easy to understand way to showcase how liquidity pool works, for example. So I don't know, that kind of visual impact does play a role into making people less stressed about using something that looks so overwhelming, such as liquidity pools.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. Developer teams need to include more people that are tailored to user experience, simplifying things. That is commonly overlooked, and you know, there's a reason one person doesn't try to do everything. That's why you have a team effort. The developer may be great on making it functional and be a back end or full stack or front end developer, but you need people to make the connection between what works and what can you passively simplify for people interacting with it. I think of like Super Mario Brothers, right? If you remember that, the original, there are no instructions. This is a perfect example of user experience. But your character, Mario, starts on the left side of the screen. That is already giving you the subconscious idea instruction that I should move him to the right. So if you're starting on the left, you're going to assume you cannot go backwards. You can only go forwards and things like that. Japanese, along with a bunch of other cultures, they're very good at innovation. And I always say in my personal life, not on this channel yet, but I always say simplicity is the hardest thing to get right. It is the hardest thing to get right. If you can make something simple, you have done the most complicated thing in the world. If anybody can use it, from a flip phone to an iPhone to a computer, if you can do that and get out of the framework, well, only people that know how to build it understand how to use it, and you go into everybody can use it without understanding it, that is the vacuum that crypto needs to fill over the next few years. And I give it a bit of leeway because it is so new. Everything's new. Everything after COVID, the NFT boom. How do I deposit my stimulus check and get a crypto for that? How do I use a wallet? We're in the early days so much that this is being overlooked. And I hope that dev teams on Ergo and elsewhere really take a serious look at user experience, because what you may understand is not what the average user may understand. And if you could get more users using your product, that would be good for everybody. So I agree with you 100%. Are there any other things on other chains that you've seen that have impressed you? Are there any other chains out there? Let's try to get out of our Ergo and Cardano bubble. Anything that you've taken a liking to, or that you're like, hey, if Ergo could absorb this or find cooperation, interoperability with that, that'd be great. A great idea.
Absolutely, yes. On Secret Network, they came up with the idea of having NFTs with hidden metadata. So that metadata can only be seen by the owner of the NFT. It can
Conceal
be,
network?
no, it's called Secret Network.
Oh, secret. Okay, just making sure. Okay.
I think it's part of the Cosmos ecosystem.
Okay.
And it makes minting so fun because you can hide metadata that can reveal things about the character that no one else can know. Or for example, you can hide videos, you can hide anything you like because the hidden metadata can be the art itself. So the customer is buying, I don't know, maybe they buy like a silhouette of a character. When they receive the NFT, they can see the character itself, but no one else can. So that really opens up to a lot of really fun ideas that artists can play around with.
Yeah, I
And
could. Oh no, go ahead. Go ahead.
just another quick thing is, for example, being able to set the addresses that the royalties are going to be sent to the moment you mint an NFT. Because, for example, on Secret Network, when you mint an NFT, you can choose the royalty percentage, and then you can split the percentage across wallets. So, for example, I mint an NFT, and I say, okay, the royalty percentage is going to be like 8%. Then it's like 2% is going to go to this wallet, 2% to this wallet, and so on. That's extremely useful. So you can easily split profits among everyone in the team.
Yeah, wow. I can imagine like a trading card pack, like a Pokemon card type thing where you don't know what you're getting.
Mm-hmm.
Until, I mean, yeah, that opens up a lot of flexibility and possibilities with NFTs. I'm trying to think if Ergo Zero Knowledge Treasury would help as a function for that, where you can, I don't want to get too far into that, but you can, if every party signs off on the signature, we're able to have this group take a certain amount from the treasury based on rules. I wonder how that would work. Our guest speaker from Firo the other day, I always mispronounce it. I keep forgetting if it's Firo or Firo, but Ruben was telling me about some sort of privacy feature where only the person that you send the coins to can see how much you actually sent versus having having it on the blockchain be public for everybody to see what you sent. So only the receiver would know what is contained within that transaction, if I'm not mistaken. So kind of like all of these ideas feel like they're not exactly there, but they're kind of in the ballpark, right? You have like a zero knowledge treasury. You don't have to know each other. It's anonymous. And then bring that in with the royalty function on Ergo, where you can mint an NFT and have a fixed royalty, but you're not necessarily able to share it across many addresses. Kind of like a trail that you're leaving, and then that would incentivize different types of artwork tokenomics of like, hey, you're part of something, even if you don't own this anymore, because it passed through your hands. That's really interesting. That's really interesting. Or even for property, like anything with NFTs, that would be really interesting. What if a previous homeowner was able to get some sort of small royalty based on a future transaction? And how would that coincide with how banks issue their loans? That would be like, I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole, but that'd be interesting because if you really think about a home, you never win. Even if you pay it off, you have property taxes, you have insurance, you have a million other things that you have to pay for. You can't just let it sit there idly. It's a liability at that point. If you rent it out, you run the risk of somebody coming in and ruining it, which hopefully you have a deposit set up. But here's the thing. Once you're out of that home, at least in the US, most people have a 30-year conventional loan. Most people on average don't spend obviously the full 30 years in that home usually. they spend between 10 and 15. So once you sell that home, yes, you got your equity, hopefully additional equity. From that, you go buy another home, but now you start again with a 30-year loan for another property. It doesn't carry over. And then the home that you sold, again, that starts over with a new homeowner. So the bank always wins in that transaction. It's like a hand-me-down that never gets paid off. It is a revolving door of customers for one property. And that kind of feels fucked up.
Especially now that mortgage rates are so high. So it's a ticking bomb.
Yeah. So I would imagine like a royalty that could be shared because you issued the title of that home with an NFT. I know Cardano has a startup company called GoKey that they issue property with NFTs on Cardano's blockchain, and it will say, hey, you have such and such lot, such and such territory, and it's like, yeah, registered with the county and the city and everything. Like you own it, NFT. Wow. So if you can transfer that and have that royalty function in there, it's almost like a profit sharing model, without any gimmicks, of course. But it'd be interesting how an original owner can be compensated for a home that maybe their grandparents sold 100 years ago down the line. So we're so early. I'm sure that has to be a thing. That has to be a thing down the line. So thank you for those ideas. That's really interesting. So speaking about NFTs in the real world, what insights do you have about NFTs being taxed where you live in your country, or any other legal complications when creating digital art, essentially as a business?
Well, the way NFTs are taxed here, they just focus on like destroying your diamond hands, because they are taxed based on the value in dollars of the amount of crypto you received at the moment of the sale. So if the price drops, then you still have to pay taxes based on the higher value it had the moment you received it when you sold the NFT. So that's really painful, because unless you sell the crypto instantly as soon as you receive it, you're putting yourself at a risk, because you might end up having to pay a lot of taxes while holding a crypto that has lost so much in value that you're going to have to sell all of it just to pay off the taxes. The taxes you owe. So you end up breaking even, like not even making a profit.
So to add to your point, every country has a different way of interpreting this entire new space and industry. So for the record, you're in England, right? So that is how they tax it over there. Over here in the United States, exactly the same thing. It is a taxable event the moment you make the sale on the NFT. Even you may not even be aware you made a sale if you're not, keeping up to it. You may not check your wallet balance. You may be working on the next piece of art, and you are. And this is really crazy for people to understand, and how a poor example how to retrofit a new type of property into a traditional system that doesn't really work that well. So you are taxed, mind you. You already worked creating the art. It is original. Somebody wanted it. They bought it. It's on the blockchain. No middlemen. At least on Ergo, right? And now you owe taxes on the profit that you made from that NFT. So since you didn't originally pay for the NFT, you created it, you owe taxes on the full amount, correct? On that piece of art at the time of sale. Then you owe the taxes in real life to pay in dollars. Same thing here in the US. You still own the cryptocurrency. You didn't sell it. You didn't trade it for anything else. You now have kind of like a hot potato. You have to pay the taxes on something that you haven't even cashed out yet. They treat you as a business owner that has already cashed out the moment you receive that cryptocurrency. You don't have the dollars to pay the taxes yet.
And it's taxed as income, not even as capital
income.
gain.
Yes.
So that's the tax is even higher.
So, yeah, yeah. It is taxed as income like you already cashed out. And then if the cryptocurrency that you now hold as from that sale of that NFT, if that begins to appreciate, the moment you decide to sell that cryptocurrency, you are taxed on the difference between the original taxable event and the appreciation of that asset. So you are taxed twice, assuming you sell the second time, but you are forced to pay taxes once, even though you're just holding a cryptocurrency. So now you have to accommodate that, and it can be very tricky because you didn't make the decision to sell this asset. Maybe you want to hold ERG long term or ADA, and now you are forced to pay as if you already sold it, even though you own it. And that's a really messed up way to treat NFTs. So are there any other legal complications apart from the taxes that you know of?
Probably IP ownership.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently, you can only transfer IP ownership if you explicitly state it, for example, in the description of the NFT. Otherwise, it's assumed that you're not transferring IP ownership. But obviously, crypto is the Wild West, so you never know if someone else is just stealing your art and selling it on another platform.
I kind of find it difficult to believe that genuinely, like you mentioned, crypto is still like a wild west, right? And NFTs are definitely even newer than the original concept of crypto with Bitcoin. I find it hard for them to genuinely believe, like with what you're saying, they'll say, exactly, that's why we need regulation. And fair enough, you need a bit of that to make sense of everything going on, the IP. If you have a generative collection that copied a different generative collection, how does that affect it legally and things like that? And you need a bit of regulation in order to live in the real world and coexist with this digital world. But you are regulated already under a misunderstood concept of what selling NFTs is. So you're getting the regulation first about the taxes. We cannot let the money escape, even though perhaps we're not consulting the right people to make perfect sense on how to appropriately do this. But we're going to handle the tax implications first and say, you must. And then we'll get around to if people are stealing your intellectual property as an artist. We'll get around to that. We'll get around to all of the other issues that arise with digital property ownership that can be easily transferred around. It just seems disingenuous to just go for taxes first and then handle regulation about every other important aspect later. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tricky situation for everyone.
So going from that morbid point, what do you anticipate to do in the future with your project?
I would love to see come to life in the physical world as well, not only the digital one. But obviously, all the issues involved with distribution and all that, they need to be tackled first. Also, because if I relied on a third party to handle creation and distribution of merchandise, for example, then prices for customers will be very high, and the margin that I will make will be very low. So it feels like a loss-loss situation for both parties. So finding a way to optimize the creation and distribution of merchandise would be life-changing. And another thing, in the meantime, we can focus on giving some utility or use case to ERGnomes. So we've been playing around with lots of different ideas, and I would rather not talk about them because, again, you never know, might change last minute. But it's gonna be fun, and everything's gonna be around the art. So what I can say is that there are not gonna be any tokens that you're going to be able to stake or stuff like that. Also because the legal implications of that would be, would be overwhelming.
Yeah.
But there are going to be lots of new little things that people are gonna love, especially if they are attached to their Ergo. If they like their Ergnome, then they're gonna like what we're working on.
Oh, that is yeah, really good and very wise on your end. Try not to give any more rope to be like, hey, you're a security, you're a security, you're a security. Yeah, very smart approach. So you've obviously thought about this a lot, and consequences of acting too impulsively are, retroactively, you don't want to put yourself or any of your customers in that situation. So that's good for you to think about protecting a customer while still offering more value to them for being part of the ERGnomes community. So two final questions, and then I'll leave it all to you. What other advice do you have for artists just coming online into the Ergo space and also the NFT space? And, people that just look at you like, hey, a success story, right? You were able to take your imagination, take a tablet, stylus, and you were able to make a nice valuable artwork, but also a nice community that really actually genuinely cares about paying up for that artwork. So what do you have for other artists that are, there's more collections now than ever, right? With Sky Harbor and even the auction house. And with that also comes some fakes on auction house. I know V3 of auction house is actually going to do the generative collection minting as well. I just want to point that out. They're in the works of that. But when you started, it wasn't so congested, right? What advice do you have for people trying to come in now and make something genuinely unique for their NFT community on Ergo?
Well, first of all, they need to just chill and focus on having fun. Because if they focus on, okay, how many NFTs do I need to create to make this amount of money, then the art is gonna be affected by that. And that obviously is gonna affect their, the uniqueness of what they're gonna be able to produce, because they're gonna focus on, creating something quickly and that's more scalable than unique. So as long as artists focus on having fun and really trying to push a project that they actually enjoy working on, then the community is gonna notice it. Because you're not gonna have to force your art down anyone's throat. It's like when you see someone dancing in the middle of the city, and then other people, they just see them dancing for no reason and they join, and then everyone starts dancing. I feel like the enthusiasm is the main ingredient, because it's gonna attract all the other people around. I don't know. I feel like since I didn't follow any sort of like marketing strategy when I created ERGnomes, it's kind of hard for me to suggest anything more elaborated than what I've just suggested, which is be yourself, because it's what I did and it's what I've always been doing, and it's been working because people genuinely like also the enthusiasm that I put into drawing these gnomes. Because, for example, they will say, oh, I can really tell that you're into this, you're into doing this. So again, the money that artists are going to make off of their NFTs are a byproduct of their enthusiasm and the kind of happiness they want to share with everyone else through their NFTs.
Great. Yeah, good advice. So finally, where can people find out more about your project? And a curious question, do you do custom pieces for customers as well?
Okay, people can learn more about ERGnomes on the website, ergnomes.io, or on our Discord, Twitter. We are in the process of revamping the website so that there are going to be lots of more information, and even someone who's never heard about Ergo before is going to be able to understand what ERGnomes and Ergo itself are all about. And answering your question about the commissions, I do them. The price fluctuates with the price of Ergo and also how busy I am. And although I do commissions, I do not do ERGnomes. I'm never gonna do an ERGnomes commission. So the commissions are usually, I don't know, like weird animals that represent, someone's personality or someone's hobbies or things like that. Those are the most common requests. And yeah, I do them. I do them. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for taking time to be on and sharing what you know. You are a very prominent artist on Ergo, and you are very active in the community. I'll be sure to put your Twitter as well into the bio and or description rather, and all corresponding links. I highly recommend that you check out this project. I personally think it is one of the best looking collections, not only on Ergo, but in the general crypto space. Like, and it, once they own it, they can print it out and do whatever they want with it, right? And
some people have done that. Some people have like framed them. They look really, really nice. All those colors.
Yeah. Look online as an idea. If you already own one of them or want to own one of them, you can always look online and there are companies that will take your NFT and create like a physical representation. You don't have to wait for the artist to do that for you. And hang it up in your room, wherever you want. They're pretty cool. So finally, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you guys in the next video.
Thanks a lot for having me, and thanks a lot for the nice words. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.